Are you dreaming of owning a vacation home that looks like it was pulled straight from the pages of Arc Digest? Today's expert episode breaks down exactly how to design with intention and shares our experts' predictions of the top interior design trends to come in 2026. What if your 401k came with a fire pit and a lake view? That's the question that inspired it all. I'm Katie Klein, and living in New York City meant buying a home felt impossible. So I decided to flip the script and buy my second home first. When I'm not there, it doubles as a short term rental, covering its costs, building equity, and even turning a profit. And best of all, it gives me a place to vacation for free. What 401k can do that? Every week, join me as we hear from real people who've done the same and experts who can help you do it too. If you thought owning any home, let alone a second one, was out of reach, this is the show for you. This is Second Home First. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Second Home First. I'm your host, Katie Klein, and today we have a really exciting expert episode for you all. If you want to own a vacation home that your family never wants to leave and one that paying guests will rush to book, perfecting your home's interior design is often the secret to both. My guest today is Alex McBride, Senior Brand Partnerships Manager at Minoan, a free platform that allows us homeowners to furnish smarter and save money on the brands we already love. She's rounding up the top three interior design trends that defined 2025 and giving us a peek into her crystal ball at what's coming next. Alex shares why vacation homes should be designed differently than primary residences and how making your home shoppable is turning properties into the next generation of influencers, the four walled kind. We also talk about why it's crucial to spend a night in your vacation home before committing to any design decisions, how intentionality matters more than ever when putting together a space, and her predictions for the top three interior design trends of 2026. So, without further ado, let's hear from Alex. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Katie, for having me.
Today, we are discussing the top interior design trends of 2025 and your predictions for what's going to be hot in 2026. But before we dive in, can you explain a bit about what Minoan is?
Yes, I would love to. So, Minoan is a completely free, full service procurement platform for hosts and hospitality professionals. Essentially, we are here to save you both time and money. We have everything from furniture and large amenities to linen and terry and your everyday supplies. But one of Minoan's kind of coolest differentiators, in my perspective, is that we make all of our properties fully shoppable. So your guests can bring home a piece of their stay.
Yes. So, talk a bit about that. Like, what does that exactly mean? And how do we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Minoan was actually founded on this idea of native retail, which is that the best shopping experiences don't happen on shelves or behind screens. They actually happen in real use cases when consumers are able to actually experiment and participate in the product. And so, what we discovered is that these properties and these hospitality spaces can really be four walled influencers where people are picking up the tea kettle and they are interacting with all of the amenities that you've so thoughtfully curated. And so through Minoan, everything that's in the property is fully shoppable via a QR code and guests are able to interact with and purchase straight from your space.
I think this is so smart, so true. I think about all of the vacation rentals that I've stayed in. And if you spend a weekend on someone's couch or sleeping in an amazing bed, nothing makes you want to buy that more than that experience rather than, like you said, going online and being like, best rated mattress. It's not the same.
It's so true. You are your own focus group, so to speak, and you've really tested the product. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is that we've seen that guests might not be in market for a new mattress or a new dining table or what have you, But when they are in market, they think back to, you know what, I really loved that mattress from our stay, or that dining table fit our family perfectly. And, we were able to play games and puzzle and all of those things. And so then they're actually going back to purchase sometimes months after the stay.
Yes, it's so true. I have had multiple guests reach out to me about one couch specifically in one of my properties. And I think it's also that too. Like, even if you weren't in the market for a couch, you might be like, wow, this couch is so superior to mine. I need it.
Totally. Yes, exactly. It's a really, really fun aspect of the model.
So, for someone who is still in the dreaming phase of owning a vacation home, or maybe even in the very early planning stage, how should they be thinking about interior design differently in a second home than they would in their primary residence?
It's a great question, and I think oftentimes the lines are blurred, but what I would recommend is to be just as intentional with your vacation rental as you are with your primary residence. I think a mistake that's made is that sometimes the second home is treated as an afterthought, and so my recommendation is always first to actually visit the space, and if you can spend a night in the space, really understand like how it flows, how you use it, because guests will likely use it similarly. And so that will really be the foundation for how do I want this space to function? What makes sense? Versus deciding which room is accommodating certain vignettes without really understanding like does this make sense to be the dining room, as an example? So, really being intentional. And then, secondly, not every trend that we see in residential primary residences makes sense for vacation rental. One thing that comes to mind is that you've seen white boucle, which is that like really fuzzy, you just kind of want to rub it. Texture and textile that's been across all sorts of upholstery. It's beautiful, it's cozy, it looks really great. It's probably not the best for a vacation rental where guests are, going to lug their suitcase and unpack and, perhaps little feet will be running across it. And so there are just trends that are really beautiful and look great in one photograph, but just won't stand the test of time for guest use.
That is such good advice in so many different areas. I used to work in the hotel industry, and when I acquired my very first vacation home, I called up one of my friends who is a designer for hotels because she says exactly that, particularly fabrics. We need to be really intentional on what we're choosing because they're going to have more wear and tear than the fabrics that are in our primary homes. And I loved what you said about spending a night in the space. That was something that we did really early on. We even hosted our family and friends to see how a large group would interact in the space. And something that came out of it was when I went to bed, I had no place to charge my cell phone. I had to move the bed to reach the outlet. So that told me, okay, I need to put those little charging cubes next to the bed so that I don't have guests having that same experience. And lastly, the intentionality behind the design. I think in the past, perhaps you'd see the second home being treated as the graveyard of Facebook Marketplace, perhaps. And and that's why a company like Minoan is so helpful. Can you talk a bit about the brands that you work with and how you streamline that ordering process? Because that can be a lot when you're talking about furnishing an entire house.
So, Minoan works with a variety of brands. We have everything from direct manufacturers that are typically only sold to design professionals. We have aggregators like Wayfair, and then we have retailers like Crate and Barrel and Our House. So, that's kind of our furniture sector. And then we also have all the other categories that you would be looking for. So, home improvement, we have linen and terry, we have toiletries, we have amenities, we have pool furniture, outdoor, of course. It really is a one-stop shop, and what makes Minoan so easy to use is that you have one consolidated cart. So you could be shopping for your vacation rental and have your mattresses and your bed frames along with your toiletries and your trash can liners. It's everything in one shared cart. And once you check out, we are updating that cart, now your order to have tracking information and delivery information. And should there be an issue with your order, you can go in and chat on that specific item. So we really try to make sure that you're not having to corral 1,000 different tracking emails in a million different places. It's really a one-stop glance at, okay, what has arrived? What am I still waiting on? And everything is just in one shared order.
And you pass along some pretty incredible discounts.
We do. We have better than trade discounts across our brand partners. And so you really are joining, when you're joining Minoan, you're joining this community of hospitality operators. And, the power of that is that we get to negotiate these really deep discounts because brands understand not only are they reaching, this sector of operators that needs quality furniture and supplies, but then also you're reaching end consumers, again, who are using the products in this native retail experience.
It's so huge. And going back to my work in the hotel industry, we see that in hotels. You're ordering multiple mattresses, multiple linens, all at scale. So they're getting those discounts. But when you think about the short term rental community as a whole, why shouldn't it be the same? So I think it's so smart what you guys have done.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. We really do look at it as though we are assisting these business operators, and most often businesses are getting those industry trade advantages, and so we're passing those along to this community as well.
Last question on like the shoppable space within the home, because I think this is also so smart. Like you said, the ease of if you've ordered things through Minoan, you then have your QR code, someone can scan it and then say, I want to own this couch as well, rather than having to even message the host and ask about it. It's all right there. And then owners of the home are actually receiving a commission for that, which is really true passive income right there. What types of homes or maybe design categories do you see perform best as shoppable spaces?
Yes, that is a great question. To be honest with you, I would say that homes that are intentional and aspirational, if you think about it, it takes a while when you're in a consignment store or a thrift store or even like a Goodwill to like really find that gem, right? Like you're really digging. And so to your point, if your space is kind of this graveyard, chances are people are not going to resonate as much with what you have in the space versus if you're really intentional and you think about what amenities might make sense, and you think about trying to gamify certain areas, and just all of the little details that make a stay really special, really nice appliances and interesting coffee machines, etc. That's where guests are going to be most excited. And so I would say that spaces that are really intentional and that curate their properties such that they are this little discovery zone for their guests is where we see the most traction, because it's just that, like, guests are excited to open up drawers and cabinets when they think that there's going to be something fun for them to find, behind all of those nooks and crannies.
We'll be right back with Alex's breakdown of the top interior design trends of 2025 and her predictions of what's to come right after this word from our sponsors.
Finding the right cleaning team has been absolutely crucial to the success of my second homes. They're my eyes and ears on the property when I'm not there, spotting issues early, keeping standards high, and helping me wow guests time and again. But finding someone local you actually trust? That wasn't always easy until I found Turno. Turno connects you with vetted cleaners who understand the demands of short term rentals in your specific market. Their app makes everything simple, from auto scheduling your cleans to photo and video checklists that ensure your property looks exactly the way you want, and even automatic payments after each clean is completed. Click the link in the show notes to check out Turno and get $25 off your first cleaning.
You finally bought your dream vacation home. Now what? Your goal is for it to pay for itself, but between managing bookings, guest messages, and cleaners, it can feel like a full time job. That's where Lodify comes in. Lodify is a comprehensive vacation rental platform that makes it easy to manage and market your second home, even if you're just getting started. From syncing your calendar across Airbnb, Verbo, and Booking.com to automating payments and guest communication, Lodify simplifies it all. It's built for beginners and comes with free one on one onboarding to help you get up and running fast. To make your second home start working for you, visit the link in the show notes and use code SHF20, that's S as in second, H as in home, F as in first, 20, to receive an additional 20% off their yearly and bi-yearly plans. And now back to the show. When thinking back to 2025, what were the top 3 design trends that you saw?
Trends in the design space, I think, are always interesting because on the one hand, things tend to stay around for a couple of years before they are out, so to speak, or in, so to speak. And especially in hospitality, there are things that are not so much trends, but just kind of like mainstays. And so this is always like an interesting question when I get it, and I really had to do some thinking. But I think the first one, thinking back about 2025, is that we are still seeing these really bold, kind of branded spaces. And what I mean by that is whether that's a full on theme and, in Nashville, you're doing the whole honky tonk bachelorette vibe, or, you have a ski kind of chalet somewhere in the West, really leaning into these trends, but not just with your furnishings, also with those statement pieces. So we're still seeing a lot of bold wallpaper throughout the space. It could be accent walls in some rooms, it could be you're doing a full powder room as an example. We're seeing statement lighting, statement furniture, just really bold, kind of eye catching accents that not only stand out in listing photos, but also become these shareable, Instagrammable moments that really kind of become branding for your space. So that's probably the first one that still kind of sticks out. The second one, and this has been true in my experience in the industry for the last couple of years, is what I'm affectionately calling the return of the hotel bed. For a while, we had themed rooms that also that translated down to the bedding, where you might have a nautical theme and the duvet cover had anchors on it or what have you. And I think what we're seeing across a lot of our hosts as of late is that they're just returning to the classic, comfy, cloud-like hotel bed, whether that's triple sheeting or, some sort of a duvet sheet set where it's just crisp white and they're getting really fluffy inserts. And, it invites guests to just jump on the bed, Home Alone style. But just this return to kind of the basics when it comes to bedding. And I think that that's for two reasons. Number one, again, who doesn't want to see a cloud like bed with these fluffy inserts and just dive in? But the other thing is that from an operations perspective, it just makes things so much easier. They can all be laundered together. It's easier to get a replacement if something, gets damaged or stained. And for your housekeeping team, there's less running around of like, oh gosh, was this duvet in this room or was it in the twin room over there? It's just so much more seamless for operations as well. The third one, which is something that I'm really excited about and I think will continue into 2026, is obviously there's been a push to make sure that your exterior is just as livable as your interior. So, we've seen exterior sofas and dining sets and of course amenities. We're seeing that take off even more in the form of now there are in pool bar stools and bar tables, and really, really like the furniture has caught up with just how much living space is outdoors. And so we're seeing our hosts really just take that to the next level, whether that's creating, these exterior living rooms with pergolas and heaters and, sofas that feel like an interior sofa, but they really do have the durability to be exterior. And then we have these really cool like in pool chaise lounges and in pool bar stools. And so just the continuation of making sure that any exterior space is truly just as designed and livable as your interior.
Oh man, hearing about pools and outdoor living right now, being in New York in January, I am just like, yes, get us to summer, please. That sounds like the dream. And I really loved what you were talking about with the hotel bed. I have been a huge proponent of white linens, and I could bore you with the history of when the hotel industry made that shift, but I will save that for another day. But I think you hear a lot of people say, maybe concerns about, well, they're going to get stained. And I loved what you talked about. Actually, this is easier for your team to launder, to take care of, to make sure that they're being intentional about. And I personally just think white linen scream, I have nothing to hide. It's clean here versus if you have a patterned bedspread, or even if we go back to the hotels of yesteryear with those horrible floral bedspreads, you just kind of want to not touch anything in that room.
It's so true. I love that theory. And you're right. Like when you see a really clean white duvet cover, you just kind of assume like this is clean versus some of those pattern ones you're like, when was the last time this was even touched, let alone clean?
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's so true.
We'll be right back with Alex's predictions for the top interior design trends of 2026 after a word from our sponsors. When I was finally ready to rent out my vacation home, I had no idea what to charge guests. Thankfully, that's when I found Price Labs, a dynamic pricing tool that helps me automate pricing like a pro. It's simple. Price Labs uses real time data to automatically adjust my rates based on local demand, nearby events, and booking trends. It's easy to use, lets me set my own minimum and maximum prices, and keeps my pricing smart and competitive without any manual work. If you want your vacation home to pay for itself or even turn a profit, you need Price Labs to help you get the most from every booking. Visit the link in the show notes and enter code second home first, all one word, for a 30-day free trial plus $10 off your first invoice.
Interior design is one of my favorite parts of buying a second home. I love creating a beautiful space. But let's be honest, staying on budget, managing orders, tracking deliveries, and juggling countless retailers can get overwhelming fast, which is why so many hosts turn to Minoan. With Minoan, you can shop more than 180 brands you love all in one place. That's brands like Crate and Barrel, Samsung, Anthropologie, Article, Casper, and so many more. They give you access to better than trade pricing, something typically reserved for professional designers, allowing you to save on every purchase. They keep every order, delivery, and receipt organized in one clean dashboard. And the best part, there's no membership fee, no subscription, no catch, just a streamlined approach with big savings. Once your second home is set up, Minoan can even make it shoppable. Your place basically becomes a four walled influencer. So after guests spend a weekend obsessing over your couch or those sheets or that coffee maker, they can scan your QR code and order the exact same item for their own home. You earn a commission, no extra work required. To furnish smarter, visit minoan.com/second home to sign up and receive a free $25 in credit. If you're listening to the show, I know making memories with family and friends is super important to you. And that's why I'm excited to introduce you to Flightographer. Flightographer connects travelers with local photographers in more than 350 destinations around the world. But it's more than just a photo shoot. It's a way to capture meaningful memories and experience a place through a local's lens. When I look back on past Flightographer photo shoots I've done, I don't just see pictures, but special moments preserved. I remember the feeling of that day and the story behind every shot. Whether you're celebrating a milestone birthday, a family vacation, or a special getaway to your second home, Flightographer is there to capture the moments you never want to forget. To book your own Flightographer shoot, visit the link in the show notes and use code SHF25. That's S as in second, H as in home, F as in first, 25 to get $25 off your first shoot. And now back to the show. Okay, so now taking out your crystal ball and looking ahead to 2026, what interior design trends are you predicting?
We saw it a little bit at the end of last year, and so this is another one that I think will be pervasive throughout 2026, which is the wellness travel and wellness trends. So, and it's beyond just having crisp Terry as an example or a towel program. It's really intentional wellness travel. And so amenities like saunas and cold plunges, even things like down to your toiletries and your scents that you have throughout your space, really creating these spa-like wellness, kind of sanctuaries for your guests. And so again, that's everything from large amenities to small amenities. And then I think in the design realm, that will translate to, kind of this more minimalistic trend where, it's very serene. There's neutral color palettes. The finishes are very smooth and everything just feels very, kind of Japanese inspired, serene. But we are seeing a ton of saunas and cold plunges as additional amenities for properties, and they are performing extremely well. So I anticipate that will continue, into 2026, and I think it's fun for folks who already have that as a routine, and for guests who don't, like, they're really excited to try it. The next one, which is one that I'm really excited about, is technology that is more aesthetically pleasing. And so this idea of kind of these smart homes, but no longer 8 remotes or like the big clunky pad that has everything. We are seeing Wi-Fi porters in these really beautiful walnut and white oak finishes. We're seeing charging pads that are leather. We are seeing frame TVs that double as artwork. So anywhere where you can kind of disguise your tech to be more aesthetically pleasing, I think is really interesting. Number one, from a design perspective. But number two, those are those little discovery moments for your guests where, even if they're not welcoming guests into their own home, like a walnut Wi Fi porter might be something that they're really interested in. So that's another one that I'm excited about. And then lastly, we kind of touched on this from 2025, but really leaning into the local storytelling. I always say, when you go to a beachfront condo in Miami versus a cabin in Aspen, you want those two places to feel really distinct and unique and like you're in a place that you visited. And so really leaning into whether that's local artists that you can incorporate into your space or just pulling from nature outside of you in small touches, I think is really going to continue to be a big trend where people are leaning into the locale and that's reflected in the interior design.
Yes, I think that's so important what you touched on. And it goes back to that intentionality that you mentioned earlier. Are you just throwing furniture in for furniture's sake, or are you really being thoughtful about how you're designing a space? We stayed at a short term rental in Geneva, which is near the Finger Lakes or in the Finger Lakes. And the space that we stayed at was actually great in terms of functionality. But then they had random things on the wall, like almost like Indian drawings and, just like a very generic clock that you felt like was pulled from TJ Maxx and such, and it was
Totally.
such a shame because you're in such a cool destination, a wine capital. There was so much they could have done just to bring it through, and it would have elevated the experience that much more, and that's what I love what you're talking about. It's also not just to say it has to be local or it has to, like, say the words of your destination. But when we were designing our first vacation home, it's a chalet in the middle of the woods. So using fabrics like leathers or bringing in hunter greens and really looking through the amazing assortment that you guys have access to via Minoan to do something that is intentional to your property is also a way to make people have that sense of place.
Exactly right. If you walk into your own space and you feel like it's not representative of the location, I think definitely, take a couple steps back. It doesn't have to be absolutely everything. And a lot of times we encourage people not to just slap up a poster that says, Key West. Like
Yeah.
instead, venture out to your favorite spots and buy their art or at least get inspiration. I love to tell people that some of my favorite way to decorate, in a coastal market is to go to the beach and find driftwood and put driftwood on, your different surfaces, and that is way cooler than anything you could find at, like a Home Goods as an example. So it's very true. You can find inspiration everywhere.
I liked your example too of talking about the beach condo and the ski cabin. And almost a good litmus test is like, could you pick up your property and drop it someplace else? And if it would make sense someplace else, then maybe we haven't thought enough about how we designed it.
I love that. Yep, that's exactly right.
Let's end with some actionable tips for the year ahead. What do you think the biggest design mistake is that new vacation homeowners make?
The biggest design mistake I think you can make is scale. And I know we've talked a lot about intentionality kind of throughout our discussion, but when you are maybe rushed for time or again if your space becomes an afterthought and you're putting furniture in that's either too small or way too large for the space, it immediately, it doesn't create the right feel for guests when they arrive and when they're trying to enjoy the space. So that could be furniture, it could also be art. I know we talked about your experience, but if you have massive walls or you have a really large living space and you're putting teeny tiny sets of artwork, it doesn't work visually. And then the last one that I would also say is rugs. If you have living spaces or bedrooms and you're putting tiny rugs in there, it just kind of shrinks the entire space and guests won't connect with it. So I would say be intentional with your scale, be intentional with your furniture, make sure that your furniture fits the space. And also make sure that your furniture fits the space for your occupancy. If you are sleeping 8 and you have a dining table for 4, that's really going to impact how your guests enjoy the space for their stay, and perhaps in a negative way. So I would say that's probably the biggest design mistake that we see.
Yes, having the right amount of seating for your occupancy is so key and so often overlooked. And also, a lot of this is you don't have to get it right the first time, right? As you're talking, I'm already thinking about my spaces and thinking, maybe that's not the rug right there, or maybe I need to change this or that. And that's the beauty of it. We can continue to evolve them as we see opportunities to change. My final question for you is if you could give vacation homeowners one piece of design advice to guide their decisions in 2026, what would it be?
Well, the first would be use Minoan. Simplify the process. But the second piece of advice that I would give is really what we spoke about at the beginning, which is if possible, before you start buying anything, spend a night in your space because you really want to know how things are going to function. And that's also true if you're doing any sort of renovations. We've had clients who have really, really wanted to do open shelving, and they spent a night in the space and just left everything on the counter as though it was going to be an open shelf. And they kind of realized, yeah, this probably isn't right for a short-term rental where, we don't know what the traffic is going to be like, et cetera. And so spending a night in your space and really understanding, oh, we need more light here because when the sun goes down, it gets really dark. All of those little things that you just can't understand unless you're really in the space. That would be probably. I know it's not design advice, but my key advice. I think from a design perspective, though, really think about what you would want as a guest. Like, what is aspirational to you? Go online, go to Pinterest, visit some local boutique hotels in your area. Like, just kind of do some exploring and see what stands out to you. Chances are, if you think it's really aspirational and cool, and you would want it in your space, guests are going to feel the same way. So, from a design perspective, I would say just take a beat and be thoughtful on what your starting point is, have some inspiration, and try to go kind of based on some ideas versus walking into a showroom and buying the whole set.
Amazing. Alex, thank you so much. You have left us so inspired for 2026. I think we need to do some designing.
Yes, well, let us know how we can help. Katie, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Second Home First. If you liked what you heard today, be sure to sign up for my free weekly newsletter at buyyoursecondhomefirst.com, where I share the simple 4-step strategy to help you do the same. If you have a minute to subscribe, rate, or review the show, or even send a favorite episode to a friend, that would mean the absolute world to me. And if you want to be a guest on the show, have a question you want answered, or a topic you think I should cover, send me a note at hello@buyyoursecondhomefirst.com or on social media at buyyoursecondhomefirst. I personally read and respond to every single message. Once again, I'm your host, Katie Klein, and I can't wait to see you all again next week. The content shared on Second Home First is for educational and informational purposes only. Please consult a licensed financial advisor before making any investment or financial decisions.